Welcome back everyone. I probably should have done this video like a month ago, but it's totally okay. I finally got my hands on the OnePlus 7T, so we can go ahead and do this little comparison. Actually, it's going to be a full in-depth one between the OnePlus 8 that just came out and its predecessor, the OnePlus 7T. Now, if you have all the money in the world and everything, as I always say, you're probably better off picking up the OnePlus 8. It is the newer phone and has a lot more going for it, has cooler features and everything. But if you're still in the budget, like the OnePlus 7T still has a ton going for it, and I think in a lot of ways, it's really just as good as the OnePlus 8. Yeah, the OnePlus 8 is faster and has a cooler screen and stuff like that, but I think the OnePlus 7T is still a tremendous phone definitely when it comes down to it. So pricing wise, there's probably the biggest difference I would say between both of them. The OnePlus 7T, right now you can pick it up for around $500. On Amazon, they're selling for about $520 to $530, while the OnePlus 8 is selling for about $650 right now. On the OnePlus website, they're always sold out, so Amazon is like my go-to place. That's where I bought mine at. So we'll go ahead and leave both of these linked down below on Amazon for the cheapest prices that I find, so you guys can get them from there and help support the channel at the same time. Now looking on the front, they both have 6.55 inch panels on the front, so we have Fluid AMOLED displays. They're both 1080p, and honestly, starting off with the OnePlus 7T, I think that panel is really good. I think it still has a lot going for it. There's a little bit of bezel around the whole entire display, which some people might like, some people might not care. Me personally, I really don't care that much. When I'm using the phone, that doesn't really bother me at all. I still think the screen looks good. You do have that teardrop display on top, which I'm really glad they stuck with this and they put it in this phone rather than going to put a notch on it or something like that. This phone definitely looks better than a lot of other phones out there, including the iPhone 11s. So the screen on this thing I still think looks really, really good for the most part. The viewing angles are great. Yeah, it's probably not the best panel in the world. And if we're looking at something like the OnePlus 8 Pro, that might be a little bit better, but the OnePlus 7T still has a lot going for it for sure. So the panel on the OnePlus 7T, in my opinion, still is great, but the OnePlus 8 does take that to another level, and it mostly has to come with the shrinking of the bezels on the side. It does have that kind of curvature on it, which is really cool. You do have a hole punch display on the left top of the display, where the OnePlus 7T just had that teardrop, which is still good enough, like I said. But with that OnePlus 8, it kind of gives the impression that it's almost completely bezel-less, which it almost is. And it's a really good looking display too. Even though they're both 1080p and the almost same exact display, it really does look really, really nice when you do have that lack of, teardrop and all that stuff, and a lack of even a little notch. So display wise, they both almost look exactly the same when it comes down to the actual display. But the OnePlus 8 does kind of look like the better looking phone when it comes down to it, in my opinion. They both have a really cool feature of having that 90Hz refresh rate, which is awesome. The OnePlus 8 Pro does have that 120Hz, but the OnePlus 8 has that standard 90Hz. So between both of these, they both have a really, really cool feature of supporting that, which is really awesome. They both have USB Type-C, which is really cool. And on the back, triple camera setups on both as well, which is really interesting, because on the OnePlus 7T, it has this circular triple camera setup, which I don't understand why they did that, but I think it looks really, really cool. Whereas on the OnePlus 8, it just has that standard triple camera setup that a lot of phones have. So on the outside, that really pretty much covers it. No IP certification on either of these phones. I will say one thing though, the OnePlus 8, the back of that phone with the matte texture feels a lot nicer than the back of the OnePlus 7T. They both feel like premium phones. The OnePlus 7T feels extremely good, but the matte texture on the OnePlus 8 with the glass on the back feels really, really nice. And most of the time you're going to have a case on it or something, but it still looks really good and it still feels really good in my opinion. So in terms of the body, I might have to give it to the OnePlus 8, but it's a pretty close neck and neck competition between them for sure. So in terms of that really pretty much covers it. Now hitting on the software, this is where things are going to be a little bit confusing. And not really, it's going to be kind of sad. The OnePlus 7T, even though it's not even a year older than the OnePlus 8, it's probably not going to last as long as the OnePlus 8. I mean, it's obvious it's not going to last as long, which is totally okay. The OnePlus 7T, they're both on Android 10 right now, and they're both going to be getting Android 11, Android 12, but the OnePlus 7T is most probably going to be lasting as long as the OnePlus 7, so you kind of have to keep that in mind. It's not a deal breaker, it's not anything like that, but still it's something to consider at the end of the day. So the OnePlus 8 is going to be lasting 1 year longer than the OnePlus 7T, but I want to tell you this, and this is very important. The OnePlus 7T, the software on it, it's so good. Oxygen OS, like I've stated before a billion times, is one of my favorite softwares ever. It gets the job done. It does more than just get the job done. It's an extremely good piece of software. I like it a lot, and I'm definitely telling you, if you have a phone that requires, One UI or some really skinned up version of Android, switching to Oxygen OS can really change your mindset on Android for sure. So luckily they're both on Oxygen OS, but the OnePlus 8 will probably be lasting longer than the OnePlus 7T, and that's a given. So in terms of the software, that pretty much covers it. Now hitting on the performance, I'll go ahead and tell you the specs first. The OnePlus 7T has that Qualcomm Snapdragon 855 Plus chipset, an octa-core CPU, and two different models, and both those models have 8 gigs of RAM. There's a 128 gig model and the 256 gig model, and I have to go on a rant in a minute once I tell you the OnePlus 8's things. The OnePlus 8 has a Qualcomm Snapdragon 865 chipset, an octa-core CPU, and Adreno 650 GPU, and two different models here as well, the 128 and 256 gig model. The 128 gig model has 8 gigs of RAM, and the top tier model has 12 gigs of RAM. Now here's something that's really, really annoying. Why did they top out at 256 and bottom out at 128? There's not even a micro SD card slot on this thing, and I think that's really annoying. These phones are really, really awesome, but the amount of storage they have in them is very disappointing. I mean, dude, iPhones top out at like 512. I think there's like 1 terabyte models now with a lot of phones. They have like crazy amounts of storage. Even the Samsung Galaxy S20s, they have micro SD card slots in them, so you can expand the storage as much as you want to. So I think OnePlus really needs to start expanding their storage for even their OnePlus 8 lineup. It's pretty weird that they did that, but it is what it is. Hopefully they can fix that in the next version of Android phones that come out. But I'll start off with the OnePlus 7T. I think this phone's performance is really good. I've been testing it pretty thoroughly, and so far it seems extremely, extremely fast for really anything I did with it. Oxygen OS, like I stated, does a really good job at, not having a lot of bloatware in the background. So it's not really like all up in your face and everything. And I think it does a really good job. I was, playing games and the games were fast. I was multitasking between apps and all those different things. And it handles really everything I threw at it perfectly fine, which is exactly what I want from a device like this. I don't really have anything to complain about per se. So, I mean, if I find something, I'll eventually tell you guys, but it's a very smooth performing device. There's really nothing to complain about. But I would say the OnePlus 8 probably takes that to another level. It's probably faster. It's a little bit faster here and there. You have the option of increasing the RAM by 4 gigs if you go with the top tier OnePlus 8, so that's a really cool option. Is everybody going to do that? Probably not, but the OnePlus 8 is going to be faster, better RAM managing device, but I think the OnePlus 7T is probably still almost exactly the same. Like, I could not tell that big of a difference between them. Like I said, the OnePlus 8 is probably the faster one, but the 7T still got the job done for sure. You're just getting the increase in RAM when you're going for the OnePlus 8 too, so keep that in mind. But in terms of the performance, I think that really pretty much covers it up for the most part. The OnePlus 8 wins, but the OnePlus 7T is right behind it. Now moving on to the camera, triple camera setups like I said on both. The OnePlus 7T has the 48 megapixel wide angle lens, 12 megapixel telephoto lens, and then a 16 megapixel ultra wide sensor. With the OnePlus 8 has a 48 megapixel wide angle lens, 16 megapixel ultra wide sensor, then a 2 megapixel macro lens, which is a very interesting choice. Now both can do 4K at 60, which is really cool, and honestly they're both almost the same as that camera. You just don't have that telephoto lens per se on the OnePlus 8, which I think is okay for the most part. You still have that ultra wide capability and that macro lens, which is really cool. You don't have any 8K on the OnePlus 8 like we do on the Galaxy S20, so that's one thing to keep in mind. But both cameras I think are pretty good. I mean, maybe the OnePlus 8's better, but even these cameras aren't as great as something like a Galaxy S20, and I think the iPhone 11 Pro has probably a better camera than both of these two. So when it comes down to it, I think the cameras are pretty much the same, and even on the front, dude, 16 megapixel sensors on both, 1080p at 30 on both as well. So again, I don't really think one blew the other one out of the water here in terms of the camera department, but they're both pretty close when it comes down to it probably. So OnePlus 8 maybe wins, but the OnePlus 7T is right behind it. And ending it off with the battery life, the OnePlus 7T has a 3800 mAh battery, the OnePlus 8 has a 4300 mAh battery. Both do not have wireless charging, which is really annoying, no anything like that. But battery life, in my opinion, would probably be better on the OnePlus 8. They're almost the same exact screen, both have that 90Hz capability, both are pretty much the same spec when it really comes down to it, besides, an increase in performance a little bit on the OnePlus 8, and I would still probably give the edge to the OnePlus 8 because of that 500 mAh increase going from the OnePlus 7T. So that's a pretty big difference in and of itself, in my opinion. So to kind of sum up this comparison and to answer the question, which one should you pick up? Should you pick up the OnePlus 7T? Should you get the OnePlus 8? Whatever. I'll tell you, if you don't have either of these phones, going for the OnePlus 7T might be better value per dollar. You might be getting more of, of a phone per dollar in that standpoint, but I think, if you have all the money in the world to spend, the OnePlus 8 is definitely the better phone to pick up. It has a lot going for it. It's a very good device. There's really not too much to complain about, and you're really getting a really, really good device device from the OnePlus 8, but you can also say the same thing for the OnePlus 7T as well. So the choice is yours. If you're trying to save the most amount of money, the OnePlus 7T is probably the better way to go. But if you don't really care about that and you just want the best phone, the OnePlus 8 is probably the better way to go between those two. So that's really pretty much it. If you guys have any other questions or anything, let me know in the comment section below. Hit the like button, that would mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. Every single subscriber that we get really does count. This will mean so much if you guys can hit that. Also check out the other links down in the description as well. My Twitter, my Instagram, my second channel, all those things are linked down below. I'd really appreciate if you guys could check it out. More importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.